So as far as meeting my expectations, you can say this movie really delivered. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're talking about a new VOD release from earlier in January called The Delivered. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, if you're excited for it, if you weren't planning on seeing it, if you even heard of it. Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, make sure to give this a thumbs up if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my channel out there and growing the community. And if you are new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of newer films, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about The Delivered. This takes place on an isolated farm in 1657, where Fanny Lye, played by Maxine Peake, lives a life of Puritan structure with her young son Arthur and her husband John, played by Charles Dance. And her world is shaken to its core by the unexpected arrival of two strangers in need, a young couple closely pursued by a ruthless sheriff and his deputy. This is written and directed by Thomas Clay, and it's also known in some areas as Fanny Lye Delivered. It got a pretty quiet VOD release at the beginning of January, and I feel like barely anyone spoke about this one. And it's a movie that's normally not up my alley because I'm usually not a huge fan of these period dramas. But for the most part, this isn't what you normally get with these sort of films. In a non-preachy sort of way, it's more of this battle of morals and the way in which people clash over who's truly the more righteous one. And it's an interesting look at how things we might take for granted today were not only just looked down upon in this particular time, but were outright criminalized. And while there are some light hints of social commentary thrown in there, we mainly see it manifested in the form of this fairly intense thriller. What I liked was how, even though it takes place on this isolated farm with wide open fields surrounding it, there's still this claustrophobic sense of the film due to some solid direction from Clay, whose work I'm unfamiliar with, so this is the first time I'm seeing anything by him. It can be a bit of a slow burn, but not in the sense that I'd say it ever really drags things out. It does a great job of taking time to build up its characters while still making it feel like a lot's happening. The first part of the film revolves around Fanny and John meeting this young couple, played by Freddie Fox and Tanya Reynolds, and in this part of the film, what I found interesting is how the things this younger couple say and do would be stuff we probably wouldn't think twice about now, because they have a much more carefree attitude where they do what they want and say what they want. But then when you remember it's within the context of this time period with a stricter outlook on life, you see how it immediately raises the suspicions of not just everyone on this farm, but everyone they come across. Because on the opposite end, you have John, who's very domineering, and he barks orders at everyone, and every decision made by his wife and son has to go through him. Though he allows them, after some convincing, to stay on the farm. So now there's all this tension building up as you're waiting to see how these two different dynamics ultimately end up clashing, which is revealed when the sheriff eventually gets involved. But it doesn't get there right away, as at first we see everyone just getting to know each other. So I liked how the film was able to effectively bring us a lot of character development while also doing a great job of building up this intriguing mystery, especially with the soundtrack choices as well. I wouldn't call the score bouncy or cheery, but it had this very lively feel to it that I appreciated. This isn't a film that wanted to just make you feel sad or down the entire time. It wanted to keep you actively engaged, and I thought the score complemented the visuals nicely. And once we got to the sheriff's involvement, it really took off from there. I liked how it turned to more of an action-based film while still staying firmly grounded in reality. The way this meticulously built up its characters, it felt like a nice payoff, and from there, it moved pretty quickly, which I appreciated. And as all the action started unfolding, there was this sort of emotional tug-of-war with Fanny going on that I thought was executed really well. She gets torn between staying with her family and sticking to what she's used to on one hand, and on the other, she's enticed by this notion of there being something more out there for her based on what she discovers about this younger couple. And it gives her this sense of empowerment that she slowly has to come to terms with. She keeps going back and forth as far as where she thinks she should ultimately go, and I like the subtle yet effective way in which we see her deal with this internal struggle, and I thought that was brought forward by a great lead performance from Maxine Peake. Now, Charles Dance is the other big standout for me in terms of performances here. If you've ever seen him in Game of Thrones, you're going to get a lot of the same vibes from him here. He's this guy who thinks he's morally superior, he doesn't think twice about any of the decisions he makes, he won't listen to reason, he may say he cares, but sometimes you wonder if that's really true, so there's a lot of moral ambiguity to him. In fact, there's a lot of moral ambiguity to most of the characters here, outside of Fanny and her son, and I think that's part of the film's overall point. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the conflict stems from each of these characters having these different sets of values that clash heavily. Though what this results in is it'll build certain characters up as being more antagonistic, and then at various points, it'll do this 180 and paint them in a more sympathetic light. And even though the film is also known as Fanny Lye Delivered, the focus will sometimes shift away from Fanny herself for extended periods of time as we follow some of the other characters around, and at times it becomes slightly unclear who to root for, from the way in which characters go from coming off as villainous to somewhat heroic. I didn't find the film to have this overall jarring feel to it, but I just think when your main character takes a backseat for parts of the movie to focus on other characters who we don't know whether or not to totally root for, it doesn't feel totally cohesive. Not to the point that the film's ruined, as there was still an emotionally compelling journey still in there, but it can be a bit off-putting. This was better than I was expecting it to be. This is normally not my sort of movie, but it's definitely better than most other period dramas I've seen. I liked how it took a look at this stuff that we normally don't think twice about now, and gives a better look at the way in which some of it is viewed in this time period. And it does so in a way where it doesn't come across as having a heavy-handed message, but instead is more of an engaging action thriller. It's got some great performances, solid themes, and some interesting twists and turns that I think make for an effective experience. It's on VOD now if you're able to check it out. The Delivered gets a 7.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see The Delivered, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like the story? Do you like these period dramas? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you next time.